Ladies and gentlemen, I am here this evening to speak with you a little further about the career of Garth Brooks. I won't say that this will be the last time that I speak of Garth Brooks or cover his career, because he's just a fascinating individual. And part of the reason I think that I'm a little bit fascinated with him is because as a 40-year-old country music fan, I basically grew up right when he was hitting his stride. And I was a big late 80s / 90s country music fan. So a lot of the things that was going on around that time, I basically had my finger on the pulse of. And I think, and this is not to diminish anything that Garth has done or to downplay his musical talent, so to speak, but I think what I find fascinating about it is some of his peers during that time frame arguably had more talent than he did. And, music is subjective, of course, but for me, the Travis Tritts, the Alan Jacksons, the Clint Blacks, and then you got into the groups of the time period like Diamond Rio and people like that. I mean, they were making phenomenal music during that time period, and Vince Gill and Reba McEntire and George Strait and all these people. But Garth was the guy who burst onto the scene and basically went from an unknown to the biggest country music star in the world within a year. A lot of people think that it was built over several years, but it really wasn't. His debut album came out in 1989, and he debuted on the Billboard Charts with a tune called Much Too Young to Feel This Damn Old. And it was a tune that he had co-written, so Garth's very first mark was a co-written song that, was great. I really enjoyed it. It's a Rodeo tune. The first mention that I know of Chris Ledoux in a mainstream manner. And the song only made it to number 8, but I really do consider it to be one of Garth's best tunes ever. His next song that we're going to cover here was also in 1989, a tune called If Tomorrow Never Comes. And this was a huge hit. It was a number 1 hit. And it really put Garth on the map, so to speak. He would go on to win the top new male vocalist that year, Song of the Year for this song, Composer of the Year for this song, which is also a co-written song. He didn't write it by himself, but still very impressive for Garth Brooks to come on this way. This was a single of the year as well, back in 1989. But that was it for 1989. Just those 2 songs. And then 1990 was the year that Garth Brooks just exploded. And I don't know of any other entertainer in country music history that debuted like that in within 9 months, basically. Maybe a little over 9 months. 9 months to a year later, he was at the top, winning Entertainer of the Year. And this is Academy of Country Music Awards that I'm talking about right now. Sorry if I'm a little all over the place here, but this is going to be a bit of a deep dive, so y'all just buckle in and get ready for it. His third single made it to number 2 in January of 1990, and it was a song called Not Counting You that Garth had written. And this was a kind of an upbeat, fun kind of song. Nothing spectacular as far as, not on the level of his first 2 singles for sure. And but it was written solely by Garth, and reaching number 2 because the fire was catching on, people. People were really, really taking an interest in Garth Brooks and him basically becoming, the Garth that we would now associate with ruling 90s country. The next song was a pivotal song that really, really put him on the map, so to speak. And I think it's a song, even though he did not write this song, it was written by Tony Arata, The Dance. The Dance is still to this day one of the biggest songs that Garth Brooks has ever put out. Video was a big part of this. It was just, during this time frame, you got to take into effect that music videos were a huge part of the success of any artist. And I remember before this only seeing If Tomorrow Never Comes. I think that was his only other video at that point. Then The Dance comes out, and it's a huge hit. Number 1, and then he puts out another song that was just phenomenal as far as catapulting him into another stratosphere, which is kind of weird because Mark Chestnut had also recorded this song around this time period, and I'm not sure the details of whether he wanted to release it as a single or not, but anyway, Garth ended up releasing this song that he did not write. This was written by some other songwriters, Friends in Low Places, and it's another number 1 hit. So Garth is rolling now. We are late 1990, and it wasn't but just a few months later, even though Friends in Low Places definitely had not died down at all, that he released another song that would become a signature song for him, Unanswered Prayers. And Garth did co-write this one. So even though he recorded other people's songs, he had a very, very well-respected, I guess you'd say, position as a songwriter, because Garth was not just doing other people's songs like, say, artists like Tim McGraw or even the great George Jones did. I mean, Garth did put his pen to paper and come up with a lot of his hits that are still huge today. And maybe that's part of the reason that the songs have stood the test of time like they have. I'm not sure. But here comes another number 1 hit as we continue through Garth Brooks' charted songs in the Billboard Country Charts. That's what this is from. And in early 1991, he had one called Two of a Kind, Working on a Full House. And all these songs are from the No Fences album. And this album was huge, people. It was a huge album and stayed in the charts for years and years after its release. Two of a Kind, Working on a Full House is another number 1 hit. Garth Brooks did not write this one. And, you can take that for what it's worth. I think that Garth didn't have to write his own songs. And the weird thing about him is the production and the sound, so to speak, is not anything all that unique to the time. It's very much sounds musically like most of the records that were being made then. So that's not diminishing anything that is going on here, but his next hit in mid 1991 was a huge one that he did co-write, and it was a tune called "The Thunder Rolls," and I remember the video very well because it was the first one that Garth did any acting in, and he basically put on a costume and a beard and dressed up like some kind of businessman that was an abusive husband to his wife, and that was the backstory for the song or whatever. And it was something that just stuck in your memory. And that was all for No Fences. But you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the songs off of No Fences were... Oh, hold on. That's not right. 4 of the songs, because The Dance was actually on his debut album. So 4 of the songs off of No Fences were number 1 hits. And then I remember it was... there was some strange stuff going on with fashion and Garth Brooks in the early 90s, and that was these tight Wrangler jeans, his big black cowboy hat, and Wrangler had some weird button-up shirts that were super starched, very stiff shirts, very colorful shirts, and he would basically make his album covers based around his shirt, and these were called brush popper shirts. Yeah, it's just something you just have to Google and look at because it was just a different time. You do not see Garth these days wearing any of the brush popper shirts as he did back in the day. The next song was off of his Rope in the Wind album, his 3rd album, and it's a song called Rodeo. And he didn't write this song, and it was the first song in quite some time that did not make it to the number 1 spot. In 1991, Rodeo only made it to number 3, and that's still pretty good. But Garth was the man by then. He had done it all, and Rope in the Wind actually won Album of the Year in 1991, as No Fences won in 1990. So he's had Album of the Year 2 years in a row by then. And you got later in 1991 another number 1 hit with Shameless that was written by Billy Joel. A lot of people don't know that Shameless was written by Billy Joel, and Garth, obviously, if you fast forward a few years later when he did his big concert up in Central Park, played the Billy Joel song, New York. I'm not really familiar that much with Billy Joel's music other than a few of the hits, but apparently he was a big Billy Joel fan. And I think, if my memory serves me correctly, Billy Joel joined him on stage for that particular performance. The next song that Garth released as we are easing into 1992 was a song called What She's Doing Now, and this is another song that was co-written by Garth and Pat Alger, and Pat Alger was also the co-writer of The Thunder Rolls. So this is a partnership that obviously was able to write some huge hits here, and another number 1 hit with What She's Doing Now. I really remember this song being played a lot back in 1992. The next song that he released after that, just a few months later, really shortly thereafter, for some reason, he started releasing songs more often. Let's just go through his releasing dates here for 1992. January the 4th, 1992, What She's Doing Now. February the 1st, not even a full month later, After a number one hit, he released another song, Papa Love Mama. This one goes to number 3. Now here's where things got weird. I don't know if he was going to try to release a song every month or something, but March 21st, 1992, he released a song from Rope in the Wind called Against the Grain, and it did not do well. It did not do well at all. It only got up to number 66. So I guess they decided to hold off on releasing another song in April, and they waited till May to release another co-written song by Garth, The River, and he's back. He's back on the number one spot. But that Against the Grain song, it wasn't written by Garth. But apparently, I can only guess that this was a song that he went to bat for, maybe. Or was it he that went to bat for this song, or was it the record label? It's just weird because it did not do well. It only got up to number 66. And a guy who, until that point, had been killing it, had just a song that didn't do well. So anyway, The River it bounced back though. That was the one. It was another number one hit, and that was it for Rope in the Wind. We're done for that album. Just 4 months later, Garth releases another album, and it's called The Chase. This album was a little bit different. It had a different feel. I don't know what exactly. I don't know how to say this, because again, it's subjective, and it's from a fan standpoint and a listener standpoint. But I just feel after Rope in the Wind, as a whole, his albums didn't seem to have as much maybe staying power or listenability as far as albums as a whole, and that's of course subjective. But the first single off of The Chase was We Shall Be Free, another song that Garth co-wrote, and it did well. It got up to number 12, but for a guy who is at the top like he was, I think it had to be a little bit of a disappointment for Garth to put out a new album and not go directly to number one. So that was in September of 92. Just a month later, easy for me to say, in October of 1992, he releases another song that he co-wrote with Kent Blasey, who was the co-writer of If Tomorrow Never Comes, a song called Somewhere Other Than the Night. And this song had a very different feel as far as the phrasing and stuff in this song. It was I don't know how to describe it, but if you listen to it, you can definitely understand where I'm coming from with this. But anyway, this was a big hit. This was a number one hit, and that was it for 1992 pretty much. He released a Christmas album that same year, and it had a hit on it called The Old Man's Back in Town. Of course, Christmas songs are short-lived anyway, but it reached number 48 on the charts. So we go to 1993, and he's released a song called Learning to Live Again, and I really like this song. It was about a guy who's gone through a breakup or a divorce or whatever, going out with another divorcee and them trying to get things back together. And it only reached number 2, only. All right, now here is an interesting song that was released actually 7 days after learning to live again. I do not understand. I'm guessing. Well, now I'm starting to kind of put the pieces together here. This was during an era when there were still A and B sides. So looking at these charts here, I'm starting to see what happened with this next song in particular. This had to be a B side because it was only on the charts for 1 week, and it released, and it only charted at number 73. So what's going on here is the B side. Certain radio stations, because of its popularity, were playing the B sides, and these songs were charting. So that's exactly what happened with Against the Grain. That makes absolutely all the sense in the world now. So, just forgive me for trying to come up with some conspiracy why those songs weren't charting higher. That's exactly what it is. So its next big hit's That Summer, because the song that, like I said, was released 1 week later was Dixie Chicken, which the Dixie Chicks named their band after. Fun little fact there. That song was not written by Garth. That was actually co-written by Lowell George of, what's the name of that band? I can't remember. I didn't expect his name to come up in this. I like that band too. I'll remember it here in a minute. We'll go back to it. So in May of 1993, that's where we are right now. That Summer, Pat Alger, another co-written song with Garth Brooks, Pat Alger. Unanswered Prayers, The Thunder Rolls. He's got his pen on both of those songs. And That Summer, and this is a number 1 hit in 1993. Now here comes one. That's it for The Chase. We're done. No more hits off the Chase album. So take it for what you will. The Chase was not as successful as the No Fences or the Rope in the Wind album. I don't think there's very much argument there. Now, this next album was huge, though. In Pieces was the name of the album. We got a red and black cover here. Of course, we're matching the shirt with album covers, as Garth did so well during that era. But this song was released in August of 1993, and it was a smash hit and stayed on the radio forever. And this is one that was co-written by Kent Blasey, another favorite writer. If Tomorrow Never Comes. Let's see, what else do you write? Somewhere Other Than the Night. Not That Summer. Yeah, this was the song after That Summer. Sorry. Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up is the song I'm talking about. Number 1, 20 weeks on the charts, and all these songs is so funny. It's like he had a formula. Most of these songs stayed on the charts for 20 weeks, and then we got to go on to the next one. That's the way he was doing it. Then he had the American Honky Tonk Bar Association, which Garth did not write, number 1. Then one that has stood the test of time, Garth did not write this song either, Callin' Baton Rouge. Lots of LSU fans out there still digging that tune. Now, as we get into September, see, this is stuff that I can't really wrap my head around. American Honky Tonk Bar Association was released on 9/11/1993. Callin' Baton Rouge, September 18th, 1993. And then you got Standing Outside the Fire, September 18th, same day. And then another song, One Night a Day, September 18th, 1993. Callin' Baton Rouge, a number 2 hit. Standing Outside the Fire, number 3. One Night a Day, which I don't really remember that song at all. I don't, and like I said, Garth was in heavy rotation during this time, but this song made it to number 7, but I do not remember that song at all. And then there was this Kiss tribute album, which I guess Garth was a big fan of Kiss because he did a song called Hard Luck Woman in 1994, and it reached number 67 now. This must be around the Chris Gaines time, I guess, because for some reason there's not a lot going on here. And I'm sure that somebody can correct me in the comments of why we have such a long gap for Garth not charting with any songs off of this In Pieces album. But you would basically go from September the 18th all the way, September the 18th, 1993, all the way to November 26th of 1994 before the Red Strokes would only reach 49 on the charts. So something's going on here. And the reason why I want to point this out is because I don't think there was ever a lull in Garth Brooks selling concert tickets. I think he had cemented his legacy with those first 4 albums. His 5th album would be coming out really soon in 1995. Basically, it looks like to me he took like a little bit longer to record the Fresh Horses album. So like a year and a half or 2 years when he seemed to be on that every year release schedule that most people were on in the 1990s. I don't know if that was due to his success or, again, the side project of making that entire Chris Gaines album that is a whole nother episode that I don't really understand all the ins and outs of it, and I don't think the general public will ever be fully aware of what was going on there. I don't know what was going on there. But we'll skip ahead to the Fresh Horses album because, like I said, there was a gap in charting for Garth Brooks between November of 1994 all the way to September of 1995 when he would come back with the Fresh Horses album and be back on the number 1 spot again with She's Every Woman, which is a great song. And then he decided to do a Aerosmith song called The Fever, but he related it more to Rodeo than the song was originally written. So just a couple months after he had that number 1 hit, The Fever did not do so well. It only reached number 23. It was just a little too rock, I think, for country. But it wasn't but about a month later he released another song called The Beaches of Cheyenne, and Garth Brooks, again, co-writer of this song, and it's one of his better songs. In my opinion, it's definitely one of my favorite songs that Garth Brooks ever recorded, and it really holds up. Kind of a timeless tune. Then there was a number 4 hit called That Old Wind, which I don't recall that. I don't recall that song at all. And then he had It's Midnight Cinderella. I don't recall that song at all either. Number 5 it reached. Then there's a song called The Change that reached number 19. And all these songs were released on the same day, December the 9th. The Old Stuff. I do like that song. That's a pretty good song. But it only reached 64. And then you had another song also released on December 9th, 1995 called Rollin'. And this one was from the Fresh Horses album. It reached 71. So he still had songs that were charting from old albums. It was very weird. I guess it was just because he was so popular. But that was it. We're gonna stop there for a couple of years because Garth was gone. He was off the charts from December. He did not release anything from December of 1995 all the way till August of 1997 when he did a song with Trisha Yearwood on her album, songbook, basically a greatest hits album of hers called In Another's Eyes. And this song only reached number 2. So there we go, but it was just a few months after that song that Garth decided to release his album Sevens. And I really like this album. In November of 1997, he had a number 1 hit with Long Neck Bottle. And Steve Wariner co-wrote that song. And I've always been a big Steve Wariner fan, so that's very cool that he was able to get a number 1 hit with Garth Brooks, which I'm sure helped him financially greatly. Just shortly thereafter, in December of 97, Garth put out a song that was co-written by the great Sean Kemp. And Sean Kemp is one of the best musicians, singers, songwriters that did not get the fame that he probably deserved, but he co-wrote Two Pina Coladas, which was another number 1 hit. And to be honest with you, I think it may be the last memorable number 1 hit that Garth ever had, in my opinion. We got a string of songs here that were all put on the charts at the same time. I'll go through them. She's Gonna Make It, which I don't remember this song. This was another song that was co-written by Garth. It made it to number 2. All these songs, again, December 6, 1997. Do What You Gotta Do. I don't remember this one at all. That made it to number 13. Bellawood, 41. Cowboy Cadillac, 52. Take the Keys to My Heart, 57. How You Ever Gonna Know, 59. A Friend of Me, 68. I Don't Have to Wonder, 70. Then we get into 1998. I guess really he had a song with Steve Wariner that was co-written by Steve Wariner from... actually, he must have been friends with Steve because this was on Steve's album, Burning the Roadhouse Down. And this was that song, and it made it to 26. And now I think, let me double check. I think we're about to cover Garth Brooks' last number 1 country song right here, written by the great Bob Dylan. To Make You Feel My Love was released on the Hope Floats soundtrack, which was a huge movie in 1998 with Sandra Bullock and Harry Connick Jr. And this was a number 1 hit for Garth, and that's it. To my knowledge, now my book here only goes through 05, so y'all might correct me. Maybe he's had a number 1 hit since then, but I don't think he has. So I'm going to cover the first 20-ish years of his career here. And To Make You Feel My Love was the number 1 hit. Then you got one called Uptown Down Home Good Old Boy, which in May of 1998 only reached number 65. Something with a Ring to It, 68. All right, here's one that got close to getting number 1 in August of 1998, a song called You Move Me, which I don't remember that song, but it got up to number 3. And then a month later, he released another song with Trisha Yearwood off of one of her albums called Where Your Road Leads, and that got to number 18. Let's go ahead and go to November of 1998, and he's got a song called It's Your Song that reached number 9. So that's pretty good. But after that, we had a song called Tearing It Up that only reached 63. Wild as the Wind, another song with Trisha Yearwood, 65. Bellow Wood, 65, which I think that's kind of weird. It's charting again after charting earlier. So we're in 1999 now, early 1999. Go Tell It on the Mountain, which is off his Christmas album. All right, now I am looking here and kind of astonished that what we're about to get into here, because in August of 1999 rather, he had a song called Lost in You that reached number 62, and then there was a song called It Don't Matter to the Sun that reached number 24, and this was off the Chris Gaines album. So this is when the Chris Gaines stuff happened. It wasn't earlier, it was around 1999. So was Chris Gaines the reason why he has never really been able to get his juju back with country music fans? Because that's it. For some weird reason, and I think I remember why, as I've talked about before, Garth Brooks has been, one of the things that makes him so super successful has been his ability to resell his old material. And this is not a knock on him. It's almost enviable to look at how Garth Brooks has been able to resell his old material. And what I'm talking about is, for years and years around the holiday seasons, he would re-release albums, his earlier albums, either in a box set form or release the individual albums with extra tracks that weren't on the albums on their original packaging or whatever. And I remember this vividly, November of 2000, his song Wild Horses, which he didn't write, but it's off his 1990 No Fences album. So this song was 10 years old. It was re-released on one of these packages, and it got to number 7 on the country charts. Huge hit. And then he had an album in 2001 called Scarecrow that did okay. He had a song with George Jones, actually, and something happened at a live event. I think it was at a award show or something, and him and Jones had a butting of the heads, but the studio version of that song got to number 24, and apparently him and George Jones really never got on the same page again after that. And then he had a song also in 01 called Wrapped in You, and that was a pretty big hit. He didn't write that one either, but it got to number 5, and that's the last top 10 single Garth Brooks had. That's it. Unless, again, I stopped following the charts and stuff around 05, and my book only goes up to 05, but we'll go ahead and cover these last few that's in here. Squeeze Me In with Trisha Yearwood, number 16, and then another song from 2001 called Thicker Than Blood that Garth co-wrote, that is. It got to number 18. That's his last top 20 hit. And then there was a song in 03, Why Ain't I Running, that got to number 24 off the Scarecrow album. And that's it. That's all for Garth Brooks as far as charting hits. And like I said, it's fascinating because he's been able to continuously, anytime he has a live tour schedule, just to knock it out of the park as far as sales. I would like to maybe get some feedback on why you think that he's been so successful and able to withhold such a high regard with his fans. I guess what I'm saying here is what makes him so different from the other artists from that era that have, you know, I always have to go back and compare him with the class of '89, and you know, Alan Jackson had a much longer run, more consistent run. Travis Tritt had a similar charting run to Garth Brooks, and that'll be an episode that I get into, and probably will be able to talk a little bit more about the songs that were not hits when I go into diving into Travis Tritt's charting songs and things of that nature. But I want to go ahead and touch just a little bit on the awards and stuff. But if y'all will, if you've made it this far and and are interested in this nerdy type stuff that I'm talking about on this episode, just drop a comment down there and let me know why you think Garth Brooks has withstood the test of time, and is it just simply that he's such a good live performer that everybody just wants to continuously see him? I almost think that his fans are loyal to him, like the Grateful Dead's fans, or Elvis for that matter. It doesn't matter how many times they see him, they want to continuously see him some more. So here's just a rundown of his awards that he's won over the years. And I won't get into the specific awards. You can go look at that yourself if you'd like to. But as far as American Music Awards, he has been nominated 21 times and has 17 wins. Billboard Music Awards, he's been nominated 23 times and has 19 wins. CMT Awards, he's only been nominated 3 times, which I don't know what that... he must have not. The CMT Awards obviously came into effect after his big runs, but he's only been nominated 3 times and won twice. Grammy Awards, this is interesting for a guy who was as successful as he was. He was nominated 13 times and only won twice. Academy of Country Music Awards, 49 nominations, 23 wins. That's pretty huge. Country Music Association, so the CMA Awards, 29 times, and he's only won 10 times. So nominated 29 times and only won 10 times. The guy has been a powerhouse for years and years and years. And I guess, he's hanging up his stadium tour supposedly after this tour is over this year. And I don't know if we will. I think he'll probably do what George Strait is doing and just kind of have a big show a few times a year, or maybe once or twice a year, or whatever. Really, he can do whatever he wants to do. He's freaking Garth Brooks, man. Although I do not understand why he has done what he has done, it's impressive, and yeah, that's all I got on Garth Brooks. Though I probably can honestly say, unless I decide to do an album cuts episode where I dive into the songs that were not hits, maybe, and talk about them a little bit, I probably won't be touching on Garth for a while. I like to think that the first few albums, if I had to make a recommendation of a song that maybe you don't know by Garth Brooks, I like Alabama Clay from the first album. I like Mr. Right from the Chase album. I like, as far as hits goes, I like, my favorite Garth Brooks song would probably be The Beaches of Cheyenne. And let's see, what's one? Wild Horses, rather. And She's Every Woman. Yeah, She's Every Woman is probably one of my favorite Garth Brooks songs as well. But there is a ton of them. And you can actually, in my personal opinion, all the way up to sevens, you can listen to those albums, and whether you got them in the background or you're just chilling and wanting to listen to some good country music, you can listen to those albums pretty much all the way through without having to skip any songs. Garth was a great country singer for his time period, and has been able to sustain one of the dangest careers I've ever witnessed. It's been phenomenal to see how much success he has. And again, I'm not the biggest Garth Brooks fan, but I am a country music fan, and you can't really dive into the history of country music without considering how big of a piece of that history Garth Brooks is. So that's it. That's my deep dive on Garth Brooks chart hits, and maybe just a little bit of a head scratcher why all the hits stopped. Is that just something that happens over time? People have their day in the sun, and then they leave the charts for the younger guys and gals who are being promoted more heavily. I don't know. I don't fully understand why Garth's reign at the top really wasn't all that long as far as chart hits, and it's a weird dynamic that he still is able to sell out everywhere, even though he's not a big chart topper anymore. So that's all, y'all. Thank you for stopping by and listening, and checking out the channel. You can go over to Josh Porter 08 and listen to some of my music if you'd like to over on the main channel. I've got about 5,000 subscribers over there, and been at it for about 15 years now of doing cover songs and releasing original material. If you would like to support this podcast and my music, you can go over to my Patreon account and join up, and you'll get some exclusive material that you will not get anywhere else. So that's it. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the flip side.